Hey guys, it's Thursday, so I'm making a video for you about a resource. This week we're not going to be talking about a specific ministry or website. Instead, we're going to be talking about Bible translations and the differences between them. And so, um, what I did was I just typed Bible translation comparison chart into Google and clicked on the images, and I literally all I did was click on this first one and visited the site. This is not a site that I can vouch for, but just skimming the article, it seems okay. The article seems okay. I cannot vouch for the ministry that wrote it. But so this one basically explains that. Here, let me just how do just I just want to show you guys the picture. Here we go. It explains that, alright, you're just gonna have to watch it here, that there's sort of a spectrum where Bible translations fall. So over here on the left, they always put word for word, and so that's like as close as possible to just this word means this word means this, and translating it just straight word for word. And then it goes all the way to thought for thought and over to a paraphrase. So it's like as close to the original as possible to further away from the original. So how word for word works is they say, okay, this word means this, and we're gonna put it as much as possible, because sometimes it's not possible to do this exactly when going from one language to another, but as much as possible they're going to use the words that were used and nothing else, and they're going to use the words in the order that they were used, because that's often important. They're going to use the same idioms. So for example, we might say something, oh, I'll play that by ear. That's an idiom. It's a saying that we have that doesn't translate into other languages, but they'll use it. So we might read an idiom that Jesus uses in a parable, for example, and we'll be like, we don't really understand what he's saying there, but okay. Whereas once you go more to thought for thought, they might translate it to something that we understand in our culture and language, and they might, um, be a little bit looser with the order of words just to make it easier for us to read if we have maybe a lower reading level, so that we're not reading like really dense stuff. And then if you go even further with that, it becomes a paraphrase where you're not actually translating straight from one language to another. You're more, paraphrasing, putting it in your own words. And this spectrum, there's a lot of ways to represent it. This is the first way. You can do it just straight like this. This one I thought was cool because it gives you a bunch of extra information about some of these Bibles use like gender neutral language, and so instead of saying man or mankind, they would say people or humankind. They give these numbers here, like 11, 12, 9.5, 3.5. That's the grade level. If you can read at the grade 11 reading level, you can read the NASB. Or if you can read at the grade 5 level, you can read the Contemporary English Bible. So they give like just extra information down here, which I thought was cool. And here's another one. This one goes word for word to thought for thought. Actually, some of these are more paraphrased over here. This one's not as easy to recognize that line. I like where they have sort of the three word for word, thought for thought, paraphrase, so that you can see it. And again, it's a spectrum. So if you're choosing, well then how do I know what kind of Bible to get? Do I get the word for word? Do I get thought for thought? What about these paraphrases? Are they just no good? Like, what is this? Okay, calm down. Calm down. It's okay. Most Bible translations have been done by very well educated, thoughtful teams of people who have put a lot of time and energy into making sure that what we have in front of us in English is a good, solid representation of God's Word that was in the original languages. So we don't have to mistrust it just because it got translated into our language. Okay? And we don't have to mistrust it just because there are a bunch of different translations. We know this because, if you're sitting in church and 5 different people have 5 different translations, all five of them can still follow along with the pastor because they're close enough. It's all saying the same thing, you know? So, if you're studying a Bible passage in depth and you really want to make sure you're getting it, I would recommend that you read a few different translations. And you can do this in the Bible software. We have Bible Gateway. Remember, we've looked at this in a previous video. And let's see, I was just looking at 2 Kings 2 today with my Bible study group. So we can look at it in the New Living Translation, and then you can add a parallel, and I don't know what, can I make that go away? Yep. You can look at as many different translations as you want. So here's the New Living Translation, here's the New English Translation, here's the New International Version, and we'll go ESV as well, the English Standard Version, if I can find it. There we go. So these are all ones that I like to read. English Standard Version would be more word for word. NIV is more thought for thought. New Living Translation is almost between thought for thought and paraphrase. New English Translation, I don't even know if that was on the list. I think it's it's either thought for thought or it's in between word for word and thought for thought. I can't remember what New English Translation was. But it's, it's all similar, but you can read the word for word one and be like, okay, that's as close to the original language as I can see, but I don't really get what it's saying. So then you could look at, NIV or New Living Translation, and those ones are more easier to read versions. It's more in the natural way that we speak, and we can go, oh, that's what it meant. So you can do this. I believe you can also do this in Blue Letter Bible. I just think it's easier with Bible Gateway, 'cause that's just what I'm used to using. But you can see it's right fairly close. You can see even as you go down, but Elisha, but Elisha, but Elisha, but Elisha. It's all fairly easy to just read across and see that it's all fairly similar. So, if you're wondering how to study the Bible well when there's a bunch of different translations, use a bunch of different translations and read it more than once. I mean, reading it more than once is a good way to study the Bible anyways, So, yeah, I'm not going to comment too much and tell you should definitely use ESV but not NLT over here. I'm not going to tell you that, guys. Like, pick a few that you trust. The more common ones are good. They're pretty safe, I guess. You know that if they're common and we use them, say, at Bible study or in church, you can trust it. There are some paraphrases that I'm going to talk about next week that you need to be more careful of. And then also the Amplified Bible you need to be careful of. And we're going to talk about that next week. Um, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. So get yourselves, if you have a few different physical Bibles that are different translations, you can use those. But again, any kind of Bible software like Bible Gateway or Blue Letter Bible will give you the option to compare verses or passages in different translations. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful for you, and we'll see you next week.